The message I've got for you is brief, relevant, and it might change your life. In this video, you will learn about one of my most recently discovered cognitive bias. It's called the best or nothing. It took me decades to find it. It is so relevant that I had no choice but to write about it immediately. It's the kind of bias that can make you or break you. You better realize you have it, otherwise it might become a parasite which swallows much of your mind. Along this video, we will also have a look on what a cognitive bias is. So sit back and relax. Let's celebrate this moment together. So, what is a cognitive bias? A cognitive bias is any logical fault embedded in your subconscious that's not validated by the conscious mind. These logical failures are integrated in your thought process and contribute to a skewed reasoning. Unless you are aware of them, they will lead you to systematic wrong judgments. You can think of them as brain bugs caused by human evolution, personality, and life experiences. It includes both conscious and unconscious bias, but we will not dig any deeper than this. Some well-known cognitive bias includes confirmation bias, selection bias, and framing bias. There is a list of well-known cognitive bias in the description you can search about, but it is not exhaustive nor definitive, because your personal experiences also contribute to the creation of new biases, and you can develop one that's really locked into your personality traits. In my case, my cognitive bias was developed by my ambitious character, my competitiveness, and desire to take the most out of any situation. It reads like this: I need the best resources to achieve any goal, because that's how I take the most out of any situation. If I don't have the best resources, I will either keep searching or postpone. Let's dive a bit in this best or nothing bias. Let's be honest, it's perfectly fine to desire the best life can offer, but that should not become a reason for systematically delay all sorts of decisions. When our inner desires becomes a frequent source of blockage, it is a signal we might need to revise what's going on with ourselves, our goals, or ultimately our definition of the best. A symptom you might be facing this cognitive bias is when you frequently reject action because you don't have the best resources. The result, many beautiful things you could have created will never come to life. In other words, you fall short of your potential. Rejecting action occurs because you refuse to work with less than ideal resources, since you believe that's the only way you take the most out of the given situation. We are not talking about a faulty risk assessment, we are not talking about fear from action or decision making. We are talking about a logical error ingrained in your subconscious that makes you believe you need the best to do the best. You don't need the best resources to have the best results. This reasoning fails all by itself. Considering the best as the highest quality, the greatest outcome doesn't always come from the exploration of the best resources. Many times it comes from a smart combination of good and not so good resources, which allows you to increase margins and still create the feeling of great quality on the final product. Can you imagine how it would cost to cook a meal with the best cookware, ingredients, and oven? How much time would it take just to find out which ones are the best? Imagine applying this to all areas of your life. Sounds unpractical, right? Many of those decisions would be put off and you would see piles of to-dos mounting one next the other. You might resolve some, but still far from what you could have done if you had made some trade-offs and went for lower requirements. What is the best? We might not know what the best is. We might not have the qualifications to define it. We might not have the resources to ask a professional who knows about it. The best is likely to be time-bound, which means it will change over time. In worst-case scenario, the best might be unknown or inexistent. There are many factors that can turn this apparently unharmful desire into a rabbit hole. Pay attention to your thoughts, because sometimes you just have to take a decision anyway and move with whatever you've got. Remember, the best is the enemy of the good. Working around the best or nothing cognitive bias. You are not alone. You will never be. Day after day, important decisions are made. And more often than not, people doesn't have the best resources on their side. This can cause them to do mistakes, but large companies, small companies, rich and poor people all go through this, and all do the same. They fix problems as they come. My advice for you is to embrace the technical depth of your choices and carry on. The power of randomness. Randomness is oftentimes overlooked, but it can do miracles for you. Have you heard about the monkey stocks experiment? Untrained monkeys picking stocks had better performance than professional fund managers. How impressive is that? Nobody really knows the future. A suboptimal solution today might be optimal in the future, and vice versa. Take a shortcut. Curate a few options from a trustworthy source and pick one. Let randomness do its magic. Instead of endlessly searching for the perfect software, get a random one from the top 10 in the marketplace. Instead of searching the perfect smartphone, pick one that meets your price requirements. This kind of approach has its limitations, but it's still useful to avoid losing time with things that will never be perfect. Ask questions. Ask a second and a third opinion on subjects you know less or are ruminating for a long time. Ask yourself if a good solution instead of the best would also fit your purposes. If you can't find a good solution, try an average solution instead. You decide according to your needs. Ability to adapt. We can find people all over the planet. Wherever we go, we adapt. And the same happens with our decisions. Whether they are supported by the best resources or not, the chances are we can do something about it, and we will adapt. Don't get me wrong. This is not a cry out for reckless decision making, but rather a call to less self-aware individuals who spend too much time on deciding between utopia and reality. Scan your thoughts. Nobody is free from cognitive biases, but a good way of fighting them is to frequently scan your thoughts. Repeatedly ask yourself where your thoughts are coming from. Be diligent. Trace your thoughts that are with you for a long time. Inspect if your beliefs from 10 years ago still make sense. Constantly challenge your mind so bias don't last. Turn your mind into a horror house for cognitive biases. Side effects of the best or nothing cognitive bias. It might happen that many of your projects never come to life, not because the opportunities were not given to you, but because you were not able to work the situation out. You might end up searching for something that do not exist. You might get underdeveloped in problem solving, which is a big part of life. You might develop a risk-averse personality because you only want to deal with perfect conditions. You might have tendency to spend a lot of time with unimportant details. You might get trapped into the exploration phase and do little to none actual work. You might end up just fine as well, if your life can accommodate such behavior. Wrap up. As you might have noticed already, the title was a metaphorical way of saying that you can kill your true potential if you let this best or nothing bias take you over. Whatever you need to achieve your goals, don't let reality and its imperfections stop you. Assess risks. If it's worthy, progress with whatever you've got and adjust along the way. In this video, we have also talked about some heuristics to increase action rate. We pinpointed a way of getting cognitive bias in check, as well as the side effects of this specific best or nothing bias. For extra milers only, take a minute to think in what we have talked about. Inspect which areas of your life this might happen. Look around the realm of possible solutions we covered, and perhaps beyond, and see which ones could be applicable to you. Try to visualize how much your life would improve by fixing those situations. Last but not least, share the message if you like it, leave a comment and subscribe. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Nice to meet you. See you next time.